Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the latest reports into the bullying allegations against off-again, on-again Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab, as we seem to be having a spotlight shone on what is not just a very oppressive bullying culture in the minister's various departments, going back years, but at the heart of our civil service in general. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there continue to be more official complaints being submitted about allegations of bullying against Dominic Raab as he faces an inquiry into them. There have been claims from all three government departments for which he has been Secretary of State. We know that it was reported that when Raab was reappointed to the Justice Department by Rishi Sunak, who has already had to accept the resignation of one close ally due to bullying, that officials who would have had to work closely with Raab were told they didn't actually have to. You know, when he came back, they were told they could choose to be moved to a different department, and that if they chose to stay, that he would not be permitted to be left alone without a senior civil servant in attendance anyway. Basically, Raab needs a chaperone to work in his own department. Such is the extent of the feeling against him. And the claims cover several years and multiple departments, so it cannot just be the sensitive nature of one or two officials. You know, essentially, I don't judge before investigations are concluded, but on the balance of probability, you'd have to say that either Raab has clearly been bullying officials, or what we have here is a large-scale coordinated campaign by civil servants against specifically him. And if you believe the latter, I'm going to have to ask why so many civil servants across different departments. You know, if they're willing to carry out an unfair smear campaign against any minister, why would they pick the laziest one going? When he's not in the gym, he seems to be hankering after laying on the beach. So you can't really imagine that the investigation is going to go well for Raab. You know, for those thinking it'll be covered up, this is possible. We should remember that Raab is not the first cabinet minister to be investigated over allegations of bullying. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary at the time, was investigated over bullying claims and found guilty. Boris Johnson overruled the report and changed it to suit himself. Now, it meant that his first ethics advisor quit because, you know, their report had been rewritten, but Johnson got to keep his Home Secretary. It is possible that Rishi Sunak would do the same. He won't even lose an ethics advisor because he doesn't have one. As far as I'm aware, it is still the case that he is unable to recruit one, even though he's trying, because all of the suitable candidates don't really trust him to behave ethically. The last ethics advisor's reputation took such a massive blow from all the skullduggery, others do not fancy a dose of the same. That being said, it is difficult to see Sunak covering for Raab in the same way Johnson did for Patel. Sunak must consider Raab to be a useful ally. Otherwise, he would not have reappointed him. Because he didn't just reappoint him to a position in cabinet, but also as Deputy Prime Minister. But Sunak has a particular problem in wanting people to believe that he is acting with more integrity than Boris Johnson, at least. I can't really comment on Liz Truss because I don't think she was in post long enough to preside over scandals like this, with the possible exception of some argy-bargy during the fracking vote that ended her premiership. If Sunak tries to cover for Raab, he may as well abandon any pretense of integrity because nobody will believe him. But there's something else emerging from the reports as well. So a recent article in The Guardian said that 10 out of 33 people who work closely with Raab in the Justice Department have complained of being the victim of bad behaviour. Now, I will point out that doesn't necessarily mean that Raab was the instigator of the bad behaviour in each case. I don't know that. The point is that 30% of officials who work closely with the Secretary of State consider themselves to have been the victims of like bullying or intimidation, harassment, whatever. You know, and across the whole civil service, the number of complaints is 7%. Like, a survey was done and 7% said that they had been the victims of poor behaviour of this nature. For Whitehall specifically, which is like the centre of the UK civil service in London, it's 8%. Now, there are two thoughts here. The first is that, and this is the main one that leaps out at you, it's over 4 times the proportion of officials in Raab's department feel that they are bullied than the civil service as a whole, or even Whitehall. These are the results of a survey that was leaked to The Guardian. It wasn't intended for publication. It was leaked to The Guardian. And figures like that do not look good for Raab. But then you come back, do you think about the 7% for the whole civil service everywhere in this country? That's still a lot, isn't it? 7% of civil servants feel that they are the victims of poor behaviour towards themselves. Even accounting for the fact that, yes, some people can have these perceptions of being a victim of something, and it's not always true. They are actually just like being sensitive about something or stuck up their own arse. Yes, but this is a very high number. Should there not be an investigation into the management culture in the whole civil service? Apart from anything else, even perceptions of intimidation and harassment, whether valid or not, they still mean that people are wary of their colleagues. That is not a healthy work environment. It may well transpire that if the allegations are proven, or even a substantial number of them, that Dominic Raab is a particularly unpleasant bully. An anonymous quote from someone suggested that Raab doesn't even know he's doing it. There are bullies who are perfectly well aware that they are bullying. These people are more calculating. They choose their victims more carefully. If Raab just doesn't think his behaviour is unreasonable, you can see why the number of complaints would be 4 times higher for his department than for others. He's not being careful to pick his victims because he doesn't think he is victimising people. But that his alleged behaviour could carry on for so many years and that so many civil servants across the entire service feel harassed, that speaks to me of a culture that doesn't prioritise respect in the workplace. And that would be poor in any organisation, but this is our public services we're talking about here. We ought to demand that they're working as efficiently as possible, shouldn't we? Governments always talk about efficiencies in the civil service. Well, can we start by banning bullying properly? Because bullying behaviour is very destructive. It's a barrier to efficient work. As for Raab, we don't know when the investigation is likely to conclude. There were 5 more complaints added to the inquiry list just this week. So however long it was going to take, it's now going to take quite a bit longer. Sunak is saying he wants it concluded quickly. But if the pile of allegations keeps growing, it'll inevitably take longer to complete. I can't imagine Sunak wants this coming to a head next April, as we're gearing up for those local elections. I do not know how Sunak is planning to play this one, but whether he accepts the findings or overrules them as Johnson did, it will still be a blow to his reputation either way. If Sunak accepts the findings, best case scenario for him personally, accepts the findings, he has to demand Raab's resignation. We know Raab is petulant. He'll no doubt seek to cause trouble on the backbenchers. Whether he's able to is another matter, I don't know. Like I say, there is a reason Sunak wanted Raab in the cabinet and to be his deputy, and it wasn't for his brains. Questions would also be asked about why Sunak stood by Raab for so long. There are calls right now for him to be suspended while the inquiry takes place. Sunak saying no. And it'll be all very well saying that the inquiry had to run its course, but the allegations are so serious that the idea you'd leave someone like that in place to carry out their bullying is going to be considered questionable at least. And if Sunak overrules the inquiry, okay, he can prevent Raab trying to act against him out of spiteful resentment, but he opens himself up as someone covering up for bullying. He'll lose control of any attempts to persuade people that he, after so many years, represents a Prime Minister that is finally acting with integrity. It's a reputation that's already taken a few hits recently, but this would surely sink it. As for wondering if the investigation won't just exonerate him naturally, it's not carried out by a stooge, it's not in-house. The person leading it is not a Sue Gray type civil servant, and even she was regarded as fairly independently minded. This is a genuinely independent employment barrister, Adam Tolley-Casey. He's been commissioned to carry out the inquiry. It's not worth the hits to his reputation to pull a con job for a few quid. They'll make plenty of money in their own work anyway. So there's no suggestion that Tolley will not carry out the inquiry properly. And he's very well qualified to do the job as well. Now, the allegations, if they're with merit, the eventual report will say so. It's just a question of whether Sunak wants to rewrite part of that report. And the allegations are so numerous and so damning that you cannot see any way out of this for Raab. I think that as much trouble as Raab may wish to try and cause outside the government, it simply won't be worth Sunak's efforts to keep him in cabinet. But the result will damage the Tories' reputation, and the closer the conclusion of the inquiry gets to the local elections, the more electoral harm it will cause. It's one thing if it happened now and everyone went, oh, this is terrible, and then in 6 months' time they've sort of forgotten about it. But if it happens as the elections are just gearing up and it's in people's minds, that could be extra trouble for Sunak, you would think. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.